Okay, let's get into it. When anyone looks at the Japanese economy, the first thing that comes to mind is always the big names,
Yeah.
the huge global brands.
The conglomerates, yeah.
Exactly. But today, we're going much deeper. We're going right to the real structural backbone of the entire nation. We're talking about Japan's small and medium enterprises, the SMEs.
That's right. And for you, the investor, getting a handle on this sector is, well, it's just non-negotiable. This deep dive is all about synthesizing the government's official roadmap. We're pulling mainly from the 2025 white paper on small and medium enterprises, but we're also weaving in some crucial context.
Things like the DX Trends 2025 and
Yeah.
the new comprehensive economic measures, right?
Right. And the mission here is pretty clear. We want to show you not just the challenges that Japanese businesses are facing, but the very specific targeted strategies they're using to drive that next wave of growth.
And the numbers. I mean, when you look at the raw numbers, you get it immediately. You understand why this group is so critical to the country's health. They're not just a part of the story.
They're the whole foundation. They're absolutely dominant. The latest data we have shows that Japanese SMEs make up a staggering 99.7% of all companies in the country.
99.7.
It's almost everything. And look at their impact. They employ roughly 70% of the entire workforce, and they're responsible for about 56% of Japan's total added value. So if you want to know where Japan is heading, you have to follow where this 99.7% is going.
Okay, so let's start right there with the immediate reality they're facing. Section 1, then. Resilience and this huge shift that's happening in finance post-COVID. The pandemic brought in emergency measures like the famous zero-zero loans. What exactly were those, and what's the legacy we're dealing with now?
Well, the term 0-0 basically meant zero interest and zero collateral required from the business. They were an unprecedented lifeline, really, just designed to prevent mass bankruptcies during the crisis.
And the debt they created must have been enormous.
Oh, it was. The guaranteed balance on those private loans peaked at around 21 trillion yen by the end of 2024. The legacy is this temporary debt overhang that now has to be managed very, very carefully.
So the government and the banks are now having to pivot. They're moving from crisis mode back to, I guess, fiscal discipline. It's a kind of de-risking of the system.
Absolutely. And the clearest indicator of this shift is the change in government-backed credit guarantees. After the Lehman shock, for instance, the ratio of 100% credit guarantees shot up to over 55%.
And now?
Now, that ratio has plummeted to just 22.6%, and that is a powerful signal to investors that the system is, getting back to normal.
But doesn't dropping that guarantee so sharply risk choking off some smaller firms that are still on the ropes? What's taking the place of that emergency aid?
That is the critical question, and the new focus is all on conditionality. Support is now directly linked to improvement. The government is still offering things like COVID capital subordinated loans up to 1.5 billion yen at a low rate to stabilize capital.
Okay, so there is still a safety net.
There is, but the really strategic tool now is something called the Kigyo Kaizen Support Guarantee.
What's the mechanism there? The Kigyo Kaizen.
It lets struggling SMEs refinance their debt up to 280 million yen, even with a 100% guarantee. But here's the catch, and this is what makes it so different from the 0-0 loans.
There's a catch.
The company must submit and execute a business improvement plan that the bank signs off on. So for an investor, this shows that debt restructuring is now tied directly to strategic reform. They're forcing a cleanup of the books and operations at the same time.
So performance-based finance. I like that. And this idea of resilience isn't just about money, it's also about being prepared. We saw a great case study of this with a company called IM Mamuro.
Yes, IM Mamuro. They make precision parts for high-end watches and robots up in Yamagata. It's a perfect example of how resilience can actually become a competitive advantage. Their region has these severe risks, floods, heavy snow.
So they needed a business continuity plan, a BCP.
They absolutely did. But what's so fascinating is that in the process of creating that BCP, figuring out where emergency assets were, defining recovery steps, they realized it was making their day-to-day operations much smoother. Their BCP became, as they put it, a peacetime asset. It just improved how they ran the business every single day.
So we have financial resilience and operational rigor being pushed on these companies. But money and plans alone won't solve Japan's bigger structural issues, like the labor shortage. Which brings us to digital transformation. Is that the next big pillar of resilience?
It absolutely is, and that takes us to section 2, the DX imperative. But look, we have to be honest about the starting points. It's
Oh,
a pretty bleak.
the digital divide.
Exactly. The statistics show this huge lag. Big companies are investing more in software, but for SMEs, the rate of zero software adoption is just alarming. You're talking about 70% for medium firms and a massive 90% for small firms.
Right. 90% of small firms have zero software investment. That number is just staggering. It screams inefficiency.
It does. But the white paper also gives us some incredible counterexamples. It shows that when DX is strategic and targeted, it works wonders. The key isn't the budget, it's the strategy.
Okay, give us an example.
Look at Tayama Studio. They're a Nambu ironware manufacturer. Their big challenge was succession. It takes 10 years to train a master craftsman. That's a huge labor cost.
A decade of training.
Right. So first, they simplified some products, and then they did something truly revolutionary. They worked with Iwat University and used AI to formalize the master craftsman's tacit knowledge. Things like the precise sound and color of the metal during firing.
They used AI to codify an artisan's intuition.
That's exactly what they did. And by doing that, they cut the training period down to just 1/3 of the time. This isn't AI for some flashy marketing campaign. This is AI for generational knowledge transfer, driven by pure necessity.
That is innovation born from a huge structural problem. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have firms that do go big on investment, like Kyoto Seisakusho.
Right. Kyoto Seisakusho, they're a metal products manufacturer, and they went all in. They invested a cumulative 1 billion yen over 8 years.
A billion yen for an SME.
A huge bet. But it led to 70% automation across their entire process. And the result was exponential. They doubled sales from 600 million to 1.2 billion yen with the exact same number of employees.
Doubled revenue with the same headcount.
Yeah.
That fundamentally rewrites the profitability model for any manufacturing investor.
And not just that, they improved employee welfare too. They cut overtime hours down to 1/3 of what they were. It shows that this kind of investment isn't just about output. It's about making the company more sustainable and a better place to work.
And then there's a third model, like the collaborative one. The case of Hiroshima Metalworks seems to prove you don't always need 1 billion yen.
Exactly. This tackles the question, how do very small businesses get access to affordable integrated tech? Hiroshima Metalwork and 7 other local SMEs got together and co-developed their own production management software. They call it TED.
So they pooled their resources.
They did. And because it was co-developed, it's affordable, it has unlimited connections, and it gives every single employee real-time visibility on production. The impact was immediate. An 8.6% increase in revenue per employee and a stunning 97% reduction in defects.
97%. Incredible.
Collaboration just completely solved their digital bottleneck.
Okay, let's move into section 3 and look outward. Japan's strategy has to go beyond just internal efficiency. It has to be about global integration and handling these new geopolitical realities. How are they pushing SMEs to go abroad?
The main focus is on making it accessible. The government's new Export 10,000 Company Support Program is the flagship here. By November 2024, they had over 20,000 companies registered, and more than 2,800 have already started exporting.
And the key for investors is how they're doing it, right? It's about lowering the barrier to entry.
Precisely. It's all about indirect exports. So you have agencies like Jetro partnering with platforms like Amazon to create the Japan store in the U.S. That accounts for almost 23% of the successful exports. It lets an SME sell globally without having to build a whole foreign logistics network from scratch.
Smart. It takes the risk out. Now let's pivot to green transformation, or GX. Is this just about compliance, or are we seeing real internal shifts in how companies think?
We're seeing proactive internal shifts, which suggests this is built to last. Take a spring manufacturer called Bizen Hatsujo. They didn't just wait for regulations. They created their own employee-led SDGs team to figure out how to accelerate CO2 reduction.
So it's a bottom-up initiative.
Entirely. And this self-driven action got real results. Projections show a 34% decrease in their carbon intensity since 2019. It proves that when you get employees engaged, that can be a far more powerful engine for change than just ticking a box.
And I thought the Sansuisha example is fascinating. They're changing their entire business model to be about circularity.
They are. Sansuisha's whole business is using old wood from traditional Japanese houses. They've moved beyond just construction to call themselves a kaminka developer, and their strategy is global. They're looking for international markets to sell these reusable materials. They're basically monetizing heritage and sustainability, turning waste into a premium export.
Finally, in this strategic section, economic security. Geopolitical risk is a huge daily challenge for any investor. How is that filtering down to the SME level?
It's all about the reliability of the supply chain.
Right.
Any company dealing in sensitive tech is now being forced to really internalize compliance. Take Kikyo, a laser and optics trading company. They were worried about their products being diverted for military use, so they massively strengthened their export controls.
What did that involve?
They grew their dedicated compliance team to 8 people and put in these strict multi-stage approval processes. That's a huge overhead for an SME.
A huge investment, yeah.
It is. And on top of that, they're actively trying to reduce dependency on China by finding alternative suppliers in places like Taiwan and South Korea. For any foreign partner, this is a key signal. It shows that Japanese SMEs are being pushed to make their supply chains more reliable and compliant, even if it adds cost.
So that operational investment is now directly tied to risk mitigation. Okay, final section. Let's bring it back home to the fundamentals. Structural improvements, productivity, and the human factor. How are they doing it?
Well, boosting productivity really starts with getting the price right. It's about having the strength to demand a fair profit. UA Tax is a great example. They make underwater acoustics equipment.
A very niche market.
Very niche. It's too small for the big players to bother with, but specialized enough for UA Tax to completely dominate. And they leverage that edge to get a 15 to 20% price hike from their customers.
Wait, a 15 to 20% price hike? In Japan's historically deflationary economy, that's remarkable.
It is. And the crucial part is what they did with that money. It wasn't just profit-taking. They immediately reinvested all of it into new R&D. That is the high-margin, innovation-driven growth cycle in action.
And we're also seeing banks getting smarter, looking beyond just the balance sheet to support these companies.
Absolutely. Traditional lending can miss a company's real strengths. Look at Sugimura Seiku, a metal press processor. When they needed a big loan, their main bank used a tool called Lokabin to do a deep, non-financial assessment.
What does Lokabin actually look at?
Think of it like a qualitative balance sheet. It assesses 4 things: management strategy, business structure, environmental performance, and internal controls. And by highlighting Sugimura Seiku's strengths in these areas, like their advanced management, they helped secure a massive 1.86 billion yen syndicated loan. It shows that soft assets like organizational quality are becoming hard currency.
Okay, let's talk about the talent crisis. We all know about Japan's demographic challenges.
Yeah.
How is the government trying to foster new, younger leadership?
They're targeting early succession, and it's working. There's a program called Atotsugi Koshien. It's like a national contest for young business successors. It's getting incredible results.
How so?
An astounding 88% of the companies that participate achieve succession with leaders who are under 40. That is so much younger than the national average, which is over 52. You're directly injecting youth and energy into management.
And what about attracting new blood, especially into sectors like manufacturing that can have an image problem?
Some companies are getting radical. Sunyu Giken Kogyo, a die-cast mold maker, is a prime example. They introduced these highly customized welfare programs. We're talking about an allowance if you get divorced, even an allowance for using matching apps.
Matching app allowance. That's
Yep.
very tailored to today's young workers.
It really is. And they coupled that with designing this urban, stylish office. The result, a nearly 100% hiring rate from people who came to visit the site. It proves that investing in culture pays off directly in talent, even in what people think of as a traditional industry.
And finally, what about skilled foreign talent? Are they just filling labor gaps, or is it more strategic?
It's becoming highly strategic. The Suzuki High-Tech case is the one to watch here. Until 2015, they were just a simple contract manufacturer. Then they made a deliberate pivot. They hired over 40 highly skilled foreign professionals, all with advanced degrees.
And what did that influx of outside expertise do?
It completely transformed their business model. They went from contract manufacturing to being a development-focused company. The result was a V-shaped recovery. Sales exploded from 1.1 billion to 4.2 billion yen. Diversity drove innovation they just couldn't access before.
So let's tie this all together.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for the foreign investor looking at Japan through this SME lens?
The strategy is crystal clear. Japan is systematically de-risking and empowering its foundational SMEs. They're bolstering resilience with these sophisticated financial tools, they're pushing them into global markets, and they're forcing them to internalize big strategic risks like GX and supply chain compliance.
So the core takeaway from the white paper isn't about some big top-down stimulus.
Not at all. It's that the real drivers of growth now are this convergence of strategic DX, proactive investment in people, and really specialized leadership. It's all about long-term vision now, not just short-term fixes.
It really feels like the investment story in Japan is shifting. It's less about just tracking macro trends and more about finding these tiny, transformed, super productive microeconomies.
That's it, exactly. I mean, we talked about so many companies today, Uattack, Suzuki High-Tech, Tayama Studio, that thrive not by being huge, but by being world first or world best in these incredibly specific niches. So considering the government's focus on supporting these unique capabilities, the thought we want to leave you with is this. Where might an investor look beyond the obvious headline industries to find that next generation of highly specialized, globally competitive Japanese manufacturers? Because the data suggests those companies, small as they are the real future of Japan's economic vitality.